Okay. Okay.
I've got 6 o'clock on my clock. Are we ready to begin?
Yes, we are, Mayor.
I'll call the June 1st, 2021 meeting of the Mill Creek City Council to order. We'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. The Mayor Pro Tem will lead us tonight.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Naomi, roll call, please.
Mayor Holtzclaw,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Vanel,
Here.
Councilmember Bond,
Here.
Councilmember Cavallari,
Here.
Councilmember Steckler,
Here.
Councilmember Briles,
Here.
Councilmember Morgan.
Here.
Thank you. We will move to audience communication. Would anyone like to speak to the council about anything on or not on the agenda tonight? I see Barbara's hand up. Barbara, name and address and your comments to 3 minutes if you would, please.
Barb Heidel, 1401 144th Place Southeast. I'd like to say thank you to a few people for yesterday's reverse parade. First, I want to say a very big thank you to Kristen Rasmussen for getting this all organized and being patient and working this all through with setup and all. I'd also like to say a very big thank you to Matthew Combs and his team, the Public Works Department. All those guys for working on this, especially for building those 4 display boards that I used this year. Plus I even used more than that. Also, I wish to thank them for being very patient with me being in their workspace last week and this week, and one more day and I'll be done. So I wish to thank everybody that worked hard on this reverse parade, which I think went well. Thank you.
Thank you, Barb. Anyone else like to speak to the council? Seeing no one in person or virtually, we will move on to presentations. Item C, business and community resource guide. City manager.
Thank you, Mayor. One of the things that we're working on are ways in which to increase quality of communication and marketing in the city of Mill Creek. We do not do this devoid of where we're at with our budget or the opportunity for us to inspire the private sector to work amongst each other to develop a new platform through which they can communicate, and the resources available to the business community can be published for the community at large. Borrowing from the paradigm that Director Todd has put together for the capital improvement plan, and the concept of, or the idea of what we call the concept phase of an idea. Tonight is a presentation of a concept from Brad Hoare at BCC Directories. You should have some hard copies available to you at the dais in front of each of you. And we also are going to, in the presentation this evening, show on the screen electronically for the community at large. What's appealing about this is that it doesn't appear to cost the city anything. We do not put more time into this until we get past the concept phase. Assuming we're all on the same page with City Council, we're then going to move to burrow deeper into the details of what a contract can look like. But from my initial impressions, this is very, very cost effective for the city of Mill Creek. So I'm going to ask Kristen Rasmussen, our community engagement coordinator, and Brad Hoare from BCC Directories to present at this time. Kristen?
Michael, before we get going, can I remind people to please mute? I'm getting an echo. I'm not sure, Barb, are you muted? I'm hearing our room twice. Let me see. I'm still Adam. Are you muted? You're not showing as muted on my screen. Do you have Zoom muted?
Yeah, if you can make sure that your devices are on silent, not only muting on Zoom, but your devices, either your iPad or your laptop, is silenced.
Okay, let's Still hearing it, but we'll figure it out somehow. Okay, sorry for the interruption.
Either Kristen or
Sure.
Brett, or if you can get started, we'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Sure thing. Well, thank you, Michael, for the intro. Good evening, Mayor and council members. I'd like to introduce Brad Hooray. He is the owner and publisher of the BCC directories. Currently, he distributes 6 directories for the city of Linwood, Burlington, Mount Vernon, Edmonds, Mukilteo, and Shoreline. He is looking to expand and add one final directory, and he thought Mill Creek would be a perfect fit. So he reached out to us to present this idea. These directories are free. They're beautifully laid out and at no cost to the city. And we thought this would be a great way to support and promote all of our businesses in Mill Creek community. It would be available with print and online. We would be able to host this on our website. So I'd like to introduce Brad, and he can share more about the directory and introduce himself.
Hey, good afternoon. Thank you so much. I thought Zoom would make it easier to public speak, but it doesn't. Basically, to introduce myself, I commercial fished up in Alaska for 16 years. And after that, having a child, my wife convinced me to stay home. And I started to work for a community newspaper in the area. And I did that for about 16 years and absolutely loved it. But, you know, as fate would have it, it closed. And I was unemployed for the first time basically in my lifetime. So what I did was I reached out to the city of Linwood, and I was able to publish their community resource guide. And I do that one in partnership with the Linwood Chamber of Commerce. And that one came out really nice. And so the following year I reached out. I was born and raised in Mount Vernon. So I reached out to Burlington and Mount Vernon, and I secured those 2 directories, and I still publish those to this day. Then I reached out to my contacts at the city of Edmonds. I live in Linwood, so it made sense to stay local. And there should be examples of our most recent Edmonds community resource guide in there. Mukilteo reached out to me the following year, and so I do publish that one for them. And then I went ahead and reached out to the city of Shoreline and the Shoreline Chamber because that made sense at the time. And I'm working with them on their next one as well. And our hopes are to expand into one more area. Mill Creek just makes absolute sense for us. I know so many advertisers in the area, and distribution is going to be very easy for me because I live so close. It just made sense to us. And as far as references, you know, this is kind of fun because I can connect anybody with any of the people that I work with at the different cities. But you know, one thing that's kind of unique is that you've got examples of of some of our directories there, and I encourage anybody that's interested to find out more about myself. Call any of my advertisers. I work with every single one of them on a one-to-one basis. So with that, I guess I can share the screen. Bear with me. I'm not seeing my screen share now. There it is. No, it's not. Things got moved down.
You just have to hover your mouse and it'll show up. Hover your mouse where you think it would be, and then it shows up.
Oh my God. Don't let this happen. I was practicing. Is that showing them or no?
Not yet.
Oh, no. And this is where I am new to Zoom as far as being part of
Practiced this earlier.
I have it available too.
One moment, please.
Oh, no.
Did you want me to share it, Brad?
If you got a way to do that, absolutely. I mean, I'm just.
No problem.
Thank you, Chris.
I didn't.
Let's see.
Great.
Now, did I pick the right screen is the question. Okay, are you seeing the directory website?
Yes, we are.
Okay, great.
And Brad, what I would ask, although we have actual physical copies in council chambers for city council, You can describe the approximate dimensions of that for our community that's participating remotely. I'd appreciate it.
Yeah, the specs on those are 5.5 wide by 8.5 high, and they vary from about 100. Linwood was 112 pages, I believe, and our smallest one is probably Mukilteo at probably 68 pages or so. They all of the online editions, they do hyperlink. We can hyperlink it directly to the city. We'll give those links to to the city for their website. Advertisers' websites also hyperlink nicely. And I wish I could be flipping through this with you, but
when I open it, does it opens in a separate tab? Did you see the one that I opened, or does it still show the main page?
Kristen, if you hit the arrows, it'll start to turn the page.
It opens the one you just clicked on, Linwood you see now.
Are you seeing the Linwood one right now?
Yes,
Okay.
perfect.
Okay.
You could go back to the cover though.
Oh, sure thing.
So the idea, just to keep momentum going here, is speaking with Kristen and Mr. Herrera. All that's really being asked of the city is to lend its the imprimatur, the city of Mill Creek, as part of the participating agency that distributes this publication into the community. There's no expectation the city will devote resources to creating the copy or soliciting the advertisers. If we choose to, we can either pay the standard rate or negotiate something else based on our participation in this publication. But in having this introduced to me, I wanted the council to see as well. We're kind of flicking through the pages quickly, but we just went past 3 pages that have basically the resources of our community, whether it's the elementary schools, early childhood centers, private schools, emergency resources, and a number of other resources in the table of contents. Brad, why don't you take it from there, please?
well, I think that you kind of hit it on the head right there. And the thing with me as well is that we are very small. It's primarily my wife and I, and she just basically helps get the book set up for us. So if there are ever any problems with any of it, I pretty much raise my hand and I take responsibility for anything. But we have not had any problems with any of the communities or the directories that we published. I think I'm batting 1,000 right now, so I'm pretty excited, and I just think it's a resource that the residents of Mill Creek are going to enjoy. So I appreciate the opportunity to maybe do this with you guys.
Yeah, hold there, Kristen. I don't mean to interrupt, Brad.
No.
I'm just basically borrowing from the practice that we did earlier today, and I just want to follow that similar format. So this is a 116-page publication for the city of Linwood. It's intended to be issued annually, and amongst the different resources, as you can see in the first few pages, were a table of contents. It shows a map of the city, and if you could, Kristen, please continue flicking through the pages. As you turn the pages, there are a number of stakeholders in the community that have found it advantageous to advertise in this publication. There's a business listing categories and a number of other indexes and resources as you turn the pages. Many of the advertisers are listed, both advertise and are also listed in the index. What Brad explained is that many of the resources, although they don't advertise, helps contribute to its value in everyone's household. This type of a booklet would be in the top drawer, perhaps in many of our kitchens, something that you can refer to. It's my understanding it's intended to be distributed annually. And once again, other than potentially participating in the cost of an advertising page, it would be minimal cost to the city, except that we then lend our reputation to it by being included as part of the participant in this publication. The idea being is that hopefully this virus is behind us. And as we look to stimulate ways in which to support the community, this appears to be a more inexpensive way for the city of Mill Creek to be involved while we contemplate other possibilities. So we wanted to bring this to the council. and at least have your assistance in helping us that if we've not addressed any particular questions. We would, first of all, want to make sure this is a good idea in your opinion, and if we get your blessing, then we will develop it beyond the concept phase and come back with more details regarding the legal arrangement.
Thank you.
Questions from the crowd? Lights went off like crazy. I did not see who went first, so I'm just gonna go in the order of the lights. Councilmember Cavallari.
Thank you, Mayor. Brad, thank you for this presentation. I'm looking at these different pamphlets here. They look fantastic. I guess the only question, well, I have a couple, but the only question I would have right now for perhaps the city manager is would this be seen as competition for the magazines that we currently have contracts with?
I do not believe so. Those come out quarterly and they're more article driven. This appears to me, at least in the book that's in front of you, to be more of a directory of resources as well as advertisers. We actually publish in the one publication, I think, Kristen, how many pages of articles did we just contribute to the Mill Creek Living magazine?
The 8 pages for the newsletter highlights.
So we would continue that arrangement. Nothing would change in that regard.
So we will continue that in this year too then? Like have, let's say, our parks and recreation, our soccer schedule, our Little League startup times, would all that be in here? Is that the goal?
No, Councilman Cavallari, it would continue to be published in Mill Creek Living magazine. We would not be taking out the 6 or 8 page spread as we do in Mill Creek Living for this publication. There's no advertising or copy that we'd be participating in. In fact, in our vetting of this ideas, it's very clear that we are not going to be devoting resources of our staff to writing articles in this publication as well. And to your excellent point, we're not intending to compete with the current arrangement we have presently with Mill Creek Living magazine.
Well, I like this, and I honestly would be opposed to even if it costs a couple of bucks, getting our schedules and whatnot out there. I think more information the public can have, the better. So I was looking at this product, and it seems that every city that he has here, or you and your wife have, seems to have its own kind of flavor and nuance to it that really, it's exciting possibility. So I support this from what I see here so far. I think this is a fantastic idea and really out of the box thinking, and thanks for presenting it.
Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mayor. My question was actually the same as Councilmember Cavallari's. This is really beautiful and well done. I think our businesses could benefit from this. I just want to make sure that we're not competing with Mill Creek Living magazine, since they are local, and I wouldn't want to have any hurt feelings and hurt their business. So that's my only concern, is to make sure we're not competing with them. And other than that, this is a great opportunity for our businesses to have their name out there and something that people are going to be picking up and perhaps bring them some business. So I support this as long as it's not competing with Mill Creek Living.
Councilmember Briles.
Yeah, so this does look great, as the others mentioned, and we don't want to have a competition with Mill Creek Living. I think, as you pointed out, the quarterly and some of the other information we have in there can help with that difference. I think the simple listing of all these different businesses can answer some questions for folks. I know I regularly see online questions asking, I'm new to the area, what is this service, what services are even available? And I mean, usually that comes with some type of recommendation from someone, but just the idea that we have that and it would be a resource that we can provide our citizens, I think would be great. So it's looking pretty good to me, and I'd be interested in hearing more.
Great. Councilmember Morgan.
Thank you. Yeah, I think this is a fantastic idea as well. My question had to do with the actual directory part. Are all businesses within the city limits automatically guaranteed to be inserted, or are they paid advertising just to be included?
Brad, can you field that question from Councilman?
Yeah,
Morgan?
absolutely. We can work it anyway. I mean, if you wanted any businesses that were not in Mill Creek to be added, we can do that. But there is no charge whatsoever for the line listings. The only revenue is from advertising, and we can do however you would like to have it look, how you would like that set up is what we can do. We're pretty
Perfect.
flexible.
I'm all on board with that. I think that's a fantastic idea.
Okay, Councilmember Bond.
Thank you, Mayor. I like the product that you produced and looking at it. Thank you for the samples. I'm not as enthusiastic as everybody else. I don't see this as something I would use, even if it was in my drawer. I use Google. I use the internet. I put in, if I'm looking for a mechanic, I enter mechanic in Mill Creek. And so I don't know. I think there's probably a group out there that might still want something like this. And since we're not having to put a cost in, and it's an option available to people, and something that you are sort of promoting and marketing, I'm willing to take a chance on it. I'm not against it at all. I'm thinking to myself, would this be something I would use? I probably would, but others would. So, thank you.
Councilmember Stackwood.
Yeah, Councilman Vaughn, that was a kind of where I was coming from. I've been sitting here quietly going back and forth in my mind. I don't see a negative, but I don't see why I would use this, because I get a line listing. I'm gonna have to go to the internet anyway to find their website to learn anything at all about them. So it's kind of like the next step. It was almost like, I don't see a problem with it. And I love the fact that it's something every one of our businesses can have a use for. I just look at it and go, it'd be great if it was an online tool, if it was an interactive tool. If this book were, this seems like a product of the past, and the concept is a product of the future. Just the execution seems a part of the past. I don't see a negative to us. It's not going to cost us, not going to take any time away, not going to do anything like that. If we make any comment at all, it's just that we'd like it to be even better if we could. But that's just my comment. I don't see a negative, but I agree. I agree with that. What Councilman Vaughn said. How could this even help our businesses more?
Could Michael or Brad help me? I'm just trying to understand what our role would be. I mean, it sounds like this is a private business that's proposing to do this, and they're not looking for the city to pay any cost in it. So I'm trying to understand what our role is and what it is that we have to bless.
Well, the role of the city is, hopefully I'll be working with primarily one person there. There is information that is needed, such as the mayor's picture and the message from the mayor, things along those lines. The city contact information, emergency information, parks and recreation, that type of information. But the beauty is most of that stuff the following year does not change. Usually it's just a lot of these pages. It's just a matter of reproofing it, making sure that 911 didn't change their phone number, for example. The map, we can work with you guys on the map, the city council, if you'd like a group photo, if you'd like solo pictures, help proofing all of that, gathering that information, and basically the main business list. And that takes a lot of work, and that's all on me, because a lot of times when people are getting a business license, for example, they're using a cell phone number, for example. And I try to reach out to as many businesses as I can as time permits and try to get accurate information. And then I also keep one master copy the entire year, that anytime there is a discrepancy, if somebody sees their listing and the address is it's wrong or something like that, I manually keep track of that and I update it for the following year. So every year it gets a little bit more accurate.
So in other words, just as for any business, you're going to be asking them to provide information about their business, you're going to be asking the city to provide information about the city. We're not really involved in the production of the document. It's just providing you the base information about the council and some information on the city that you then input into it.
Correct. But you will also, be able to prove everything. I mean, I'm not going to print anything without, the green light from you guys to make sure it's as accurate as possible.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Yeah, I mean, I think this sounds like a great idea. It's just, I'm not sure it's a lot of, much of a role for us to play other than providing the information to help Brad put this together. So, you know, I understand the comments that some may choose not to use it, but I'm not sure it's for me to decide who wants to use it or not use it, so.
Thank you. Appreciate your consideration.
Thank you, Brad, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Moving to old business, Mr. Daggai, there he is. I see Mr. Dagginger on the screen finally. I'll turn it over to you to begin our discussion on the governance manual. We will not be taking action tonight. We will finalize this next week. I'll let Grant take it from there. Unmute, please. We still can't hear you.
There we go. How about now?
Yep, we got it.
Excellent. Thank you. Sorry about that. Must be the heat today. Naomi, can I pull this? Can I use the screen? Are you seeing that?
Not yet.
How about now?
Not yet.
Naomi, do I have,
I will share my screen.
okay.
There we go.
All right. So just by way of reintroduction, we have had a series of study sessions on the governance manual. We met at the last council meeting. We took the first look at the final review of the manual. We provided some updates this week for several items, and I thought maybe that would be the best thing to do, would be to review it. We talked briefly last week about the resolution and the terms of the resolution. The latest changes, I know there's been some information provided to me from council. One was in section 1.5.3. Council wanted to clarify that the staff will provide quarterly reviews of the financial statements. That was added. We provided you with a strike draft that shows these changes. Another topic that came up last week during the session was the question of whether we should add procedures for and criteria for proclamations. And that has been added in section 7.1 of the document that you received. It includes, it's in 7.1.3. It provides some criteria for proclamations. It says that proclamations are to be generally broad statements recognizing achievements of individuals or groups within the city, or statements on topics that have relevance to large numbers of residents, and that they're generally positive messages. And then we had developed some guidelines for how the process for issuing proclamations would work. And let's see, that should be what we're seeing now. Do you have that in front of you? Yes. So this criteria are criteria that are used by a number of cities. And the focal point here would be that if there was a proclamation being requested, there's several ways proclamations come to the council. One is by requests of community organizations, and then also at times by suggestions by council members. The idea here will be that the city clerk would be sort of the focal point for receiving these requests and then forwarding them to the mayor and the city manager for determining if they are appropriate and meet the criteria that is included in the manual. And of course, if it's a borderline decision or something where the mayor believes it would be prudent to get input from the council, the mayor can certainly do that. Obviously, proclamations take some time to read, and so the council would reserve the right to limit the number of proclamations at any one meeting. And also, the council could vote on ultimately whether the proclamation can be issued or not. And then if for some reason in reviewing a proclamation that's submitted, the mayor and city manager confer and don't believe it's an appropriate kind of proclamation, doesn't meet the criteria, then obviously the applicant would be notified of that decision. So that provides some guideposts for the council in developing a process for receiving and reviewing and ultimately adopting or rejecting proclamations. One other issue that was identified was we updated this in Exhibit B, which is the list of current boards and commissions. We went back and made sure that we have updated the current staff liaisons and who would be selecting that. And as it turns out, the Civil Service Commission would still have the police chief as the lead liaison, and then the other boards and commissions would have the Public Works Director or the Public Works Director's designee for staff liaison. We did talk about the proposed motion. I think we're not taking action tonight, so we don't really need to spend much time on that. There was one other question that I was looking for some guidance from the council on tonight, and that was an inconsistency we found in the review process for assignments of council liaisons. And that was, we have two different dates in here. In section 1.3.4, we talk about the council annually reviewing the assignment of council liaisons to boards and commissions and organizations. And then in section 2.2.6, we have a provision that talks about biannual appointments. So it would be helpful if we got guidance from council as to whether you want to review those appointments annually or biannually.
My recollection is we've done it annually in January of each year.
I thought it was biannually. No, that's my recollection, because we did it.
Never keep them straight. Is that twice a year or every other year?
Every year.
We do the mayor and mayor pro tem every other year, but I think the boards and commissions we've typically done in January of every year.
I thought as long as because there's always a period of at least 2 years where council members will be on the council. And so once the assignments were set, they were set for 2 years.
No, I don't believe so.
Okay.
But
I don't think it's bad.
well, let's confirm that our recollection is correct. But my recollection was 7 years I've been on the council, and I saw Mark Vaughn nodded his head as if we've done it annually.
We do it annually, but we rarely shuffle. If there's a member that's been on a board and they're enjoying it, there's no conflicts or anything unusual, they usually stay on. And the shuffling is after a window of time, just to mix it up and give another member a chance, but 2 or 3 years is not a problem.
Yeah, Michael, maybe what you could do is check the last couple of years. I wonder if what we did is formally adopted 1 year, and then the following January, just see if we have any changes to make. And if there's no changes, we don't re-adopt it. We just make any changes we need to make, and then the following year.
Do we have a couple boards that are 2-year terms? I think that Health District, and I'm concerned about community transit, I'm not sure.
Community transit, I think that was just a function of former Councilmember Todd being on that. That wasn't a position that we haven't appointed. He was elected to that position.
We appointed him there. He had to get elected to stay there. We sent him as a candidate.
The health
Yes.
district is 2 years.
Yeah, the health district's 2 years. So other than that, we do it every year.
We've discussed it both years that I've been on the council.
Well, Michael, could you just look the last couple of years, so when we take this up next week, we can all have the accurate information.
Got it, thank you.
Grant, was there anything else you wanted to cover?
That was it, unless there were questions or other suggestions for changes from council.
Let me just say that following the meeting last week, Councilmember Stecker and I did spend a fair amount of time on the phone going through his list of questions and comments, and we narrowed it down to a handful. I then discussed those with the mayor pro tem, the city manager, and the city attorney. And the draft that's in front of you reflects a few of the changes that we made based on Councilmember Stecker's comment. I've not yet had a chance to circle back with him to go through the other questions that he had as to why changes weren't made. I'll do that in the next day or two. And then on the proclamations, the language she's proposed, I think is good. My hope would be that next week, we can pull together and have in our packet the list of proclamations that over the last few years we have traditionally made. So we can kind of establish a baseline of the proclamations without having to have every one of them approved. For instance, I believe June is Diversity Month, and so that's one that we have historically issued a proclamation for. So I hope would be if we have a common understanding of what we've historically done, we wouldn't have to get the blessing for all those. It would be for new proclamations we haven't historically done that we'd be bringing to the council for discussion. Councilmember Cavallari and then Councilmember Steckler.
Thank you, Mayor. Just as a sidebar with that last proclamation comment, I like the way it's been done traditionally. It's, I think for the most part, been successful, that there's almost an organic feel to it, that if a council member or a group comes, says, hey, we really feel passionate about this, and it just kind of goes through the steps up the chain. I really like it. It's worked so far, so I don't want to mess too much with it with language. I haven't read that other stuff just yet because I have my stuff saved on the redacted version. But if we could just go over a couple of quick things, Grant. 2.2.7, which is the hearing examiner language.
Yes.
The change is there's an addition. It's the hearings examiner. The city regulates and adjudicates land use matters, and it says and other appeals using a hearings examiner system set forth in Mill Creek Municipal Code. That and other appeals is kind of a broad blanket when it comes to appellate issues that the council may be asked to engage in, such as labor disputes, such as I believe we're in the chain to someplace or the other for employee termination matters. So I just want to make sure that that is only referring to land use matters.
Yeah, it refers to two things, land use matters, and we added, if you recall last year, appeals of dangerous dog ordinance violations. So that goes to the hearing examiner. I don't think any labor or employment issues would go to the hearing examiner.
Okay, and then my next one was 3.6.3. and a possible addition of language of limitations on holding multiple offices. I noticed a strange trend that I didn't think was legal, and it barely is if you look at the code, where elected officials can hold multiple offices, meaning they can be elected to a county position and still hold their city position, or be elected as a representative for the state and retain their city position. I'm not sure the pulse of the council. I don't like it. I think it's incredibly poor taste to hold two positions. I think it really looks on its surface like a money grab. I wouldn't mind seeing language that municipal officers or Mill Creek council members, until elected, must step down if they are appointed or elected to another seat. So that's something I was hoping we could talk about too. And I think I have one more. Take a look at it here real quick, in just a second. I use the iPad yellow redaction method, same as what we have here. And last one, I think we fixed already. So that's pretty much all I have, Brandon. You've done a great job on this. There's been some good positive changes that reflect current date with internet and online usage and stuff like that. So I absolutely support what we've done here, and just have those couple of questions.
Yeah, thank you, Councilmember Cavallari. With respect to the question you had about multiple offices, there's a state statute and there's a doctrine called the incompatible offices. So there is some limitation on holding multiple offices, where holding those offices would be incompatible with your duties as a city council member, and that would probably control in instances where there was an incompatibility. If you had some specific did you have any specific change that you wanted to make to the language that that we have in 3.3, I believe it is 3.6.2. There's a limitation on holding multiple offices that exists right now in the manual, and it has been there since it was adopted in 2011.
I don't currently have language, so I'll try to put something in writing and get it to you by Monday or Tuesday at the latest.
That'd be great. Thank you.
I'm not sure that the whole council feels the same way. I've seen it, I've watched it, even in the local area here, right here, in the local cities and the local counties. So it's not something I'm a fan of. So I would maybe we could move in that direction.
Grant, could you provide us a copy of the statute?
Yes,
Too generically so that we can consider that too.
I will.
Thank you. Councilmember Steckler?
I have a suggestion. On the proclamations, one thing I've noticed over the years that we have Black History Month, Diversity Month, and these are months we want to do proclamations, but we always seem to kind of get into the month before we make the decision. And what I would think is that as a procedure would be, we know all of these in advance of the year. Why not take those into account? Why don't we decide which ones we kind of get ahead of the curve, which ones we want to have, that we want to recognize with proclamation. And like, for example, today is June 1st. What a great time to recognize Diversity Month with a proclamation at this meeting, as we would in the Black History Month or other months that we would do. So I think one of the procedures I would recommend is that the council will recognize those appropriate months of recognition in advance of the year and do everything in their power to make sure that those months are recognized with a proclamation at the beginning, earliest day of the month, rather than run the risk of it's June 26th and we'd like to recognize the first month. So could we get ahead of the curve? That suggestion, is it too much specifics, or that would be one of my recommendations?
That's what I'm hoping by getting the list to everyone that we can come to agreement on that we'll deal with that. I think in the past, it's what people remember is like, oh yeah, right, we've got this, we need to put that together. And so if we have a set list that we've historically done, then I think it'll be easier for the city clerk and city manager to calendar those, to keep track of them so that we're having them ready at the first meeting of the month rather than going, oh crud, we forgot the third meeting getting it ready.
Yeah, you guys, let's put that in the governance manual. That's our policy. That's what we're going to do from now on. That's a state, a set of policy that we're going to follow. I respect it.
Any other questions, comments? So my hope and expectation would be that we can kind of hammer out these final details next week and finally put this to bed and finalize it. Thank you, Grant. Where are we in the agenda?
We are at the consent
Where's the
agenda.
consent agenda? Moving right along tonight. Consent agenda is simply the city council regular meeting minutes from our May 25th, 2021 meeting. We have a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Seconded.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Did anyone abstain? Consent agenda is approved. Moving to reports. Michael, do you want to talk about the schedule? Or is Naomi have this, is she able to put this up on the screen?
Yes, I can. Hold on one moment.
So as we talked about last week, we put together a proposed schedule for doing the city manager's evaluation between now and the end of July, and working into that some of the informative panels on the DRCC that we've been talking about with Karen Reed over the past several months. So you'll see up on the screen on the left column is the evaluation process, which we would kind of generally discuss tonight, and I believe kick off the meeting next week with a review of the formal document outlining the process and have a discussion on that to be finalized next week as opposed to tonight. The one question that I think we need clarification on, or there's two things. The recreational panel, part one, I would like to push those back 2 weeks. I'm going to be on vacation the 21st to the 30th. And so I had talked with the city manager, Mayor Pro Tem, about missing one of those, the feasibility study on the 22nd, but I would like to be in attendance for the other two. So we very well may push those back 1 week. And then the Tuesday, July 20th date, Michael, we need to clarify whether or not with Karen, if she's intending for us to have a special meeting to do that, because that is our third week of the month.
That is the intention, Mayor.
Okay.
Sorry, that's not clear.
Okay, so the intent would be, as we talked about, there'd be a couple, I think what we're working towards is to get this all done is to use the 20th solely for a special meeting to deal with finalizing the city manager's review. And then in the second half of August, possibly doing a special meeting that would be focused on the DRCC discussion. So we have not put a date in for that. We need to get some, I know our Mayor Pro Tem will be out the first 2 weeks, so we'll be looking at the latter part of the month. So we'll have to see if our schedules will facilitate that. But before we get to August, this is kind of the outline of the timing of the schedule with the modifications that I just covered. Councilmember Steckler? Saw you reaching.
You said you're reaching for the light. Was there and I'm sorry if it's here and I'm missing it, but I know that we talked about setting aside a date before we got into the recreational expert panel discussion of the council, discussing their thoughts about different utilizations for Dawson Rumler and having that opened up dialogue.
We did talk about that. I'll talk with the city manager on Thursday about putting that on the agenda for next week.
Oh, good. Just before we get to the
Yes,
expert panel.
because I don't think that'll be a long discussion. But we'll put it on the agenda for next week. Comments, questions on the process? Are you reaching for your light?
Just as an FYI, that third Tuesday in July I won't be here.
Okay.
I'd probably be able to, I don't think it's crazy for me to remote in, but I guess that's possible.
That's up to you if you want. It depends on if we adopt the governance manual next week that allows you to remote it.
That's a good point.
So, yeah, a little incentive. Okay, so I think we've tentatively finalized the schedule for the next 2 months to get us through the stuff we want to do at the end of, through the next 2 months on the DRCC and the city manager's review. And then interspersed with that is some of the presentations from the chief. You'll be covering a little bit of it tonight, but Mayor Pro Tem, myself, and Councilmember Bond have been working with city manager and the police chief to kind of put together a framework and structure for bringing information to the council to discuss our police department. So that in part will just start tonight with some of the statistics the chief is bringing to us, but it will continue in earnest in the coming weeks as we work into the agenda some more substantive informational sessions. Sound good? Okay. I think the only other thing I had was I was not able to attend the SCT meeting last week on kind of short notice, so I wasn't able to get this Mayor Pro Tem to fill in for me. I believe the main topic of discussion was the proposed amendments to the countywide planning policies that will govern ultimately our comprehensive plan adoption. So at some point, Michael, we need to work with Tom to give us an update on what those will mean for us. I've reviewed them. I'm not prepared to speak to them tonight, but I have gone through them.
Got it.
That's all I had. Mayor Pro Tem, do you have any report tonight?
My microphone fell off. Thank you, Mayor. I just have a couple things to report. I went out to, is it Kogier or Kogier? This weekend to their open house. It was a great family event where I enjoyed it. They had old cars there, and they had their floats and some 50s music, and it was really enjoyable to get out and see members of our community. And I also want to make sure I give a shout out to everyone. The Memorial Day Reverse Parade, I took Cora down, and it was very well done. There were quite a few people driving by and stopping by. It was a great time to honor those who have gave the ultimate sacrifice for us so that we can come down here and be free and walk through town center. And I want to make sure I thank Kristen and all the work she has done to make that happen, and thank Matthew Combs and all his staff, all the work they've done to make it happen. And also the police chief was there, thank him for the work he had to do, and that he was there. And it was also great to see city manager there as well. So everyone was out. Thank you for your hard work. And it was great to have a moment for the city to honor those who have fallen so that we can actually be here in this room. Thanks.
Councilmember Bond, any report tonight?
Just a couple comments. I'm on board with Councilmember Cavallari's comments and concerns about electeds, getting elected to one thing, then being appointed to another, and not stepping down from the other position. But I wouldn't want anything in the language that we were talking about to prohibit one of us from, like, say, serving on charter review or something of that nature, where you actually do have to get elected, you're paid, it's not a conflict, it's different. So just a thought on that. Another thing, with regards to reports, we can make this work, but for me, when I look at the reports, I think of sort of last minute off the cuff comments, similar to like what I'm doing now. If staff has a specific presentation, such as what the chief is going to brief us on, I would prefer to see that in presentations. If there's any type of slides or sort of prepared thing, I would rather see that there. And then in reports, hit the chief and he has the last minute, oh, by the way, I forgot to tell you, got a new canine, whatever. I view that as reports as just last minute off the cuff stuff. Planned presentations, I would like to see in under presentations. Just that's a thought. I'll defer to my fellow members. Also, citizen activist and volunteer Barb Heidel made some comments at the beginning of our meeting where she thanked a number of people, and she was right to do so, and I share that. And I just want to build on that and say thank you, Barb Heidel, for everything you did for the reverse parade and your volunteer work in our city. And with that, I'm done.
Councilmember Stecker, any report?
You stole my thunder on one of them. I did go by the first parade and I saw Barb and some other citizens patrol members who sometimes just don't get the recognition I think that they deserve for their volunteer hours. George was down there kneeling down talking to a little boy, and I'm sure he was telling him about the uniform that he was showing him, the military service. And you know, we're a great community when we get people from the citizens that come forward and volunteer their time in our citizens patrol, like Barb, George, some of the other people that put on that help to coordinate these events, like the reverse parade, like the shredding events and the recycling events. I mean, they keep coming out. You just put on an event, they'll show up. And so I did want to thank them. So funny you should mention that. I did want to call them out as a group that doesn't always get the recognition. That's my fault too for not doing that. So thank you, Councilman Bond. I do have a couple questions on the parade, but I'm going to wait for the city manager to give me his report. So I might have a couple questions. I might have nothing for you, so I don't want to take too much time on that. And I am glad that we are going to be moving forward. I hope we're going to be moving forward as we have in the past in recognizing diversity, the month of diversity month, and the LGBTQ community. I think it's important to recognize that as well with proclamation. So I am supportive of that. Thank you. I'm done.
Councilmember Cavallari, any report?
Thank you, Mayor. No report, but to kind of just say ditto to Mayor Pro Tem Vignal. I also attended the Cogier, as they say in France, open house. It was a lot of fun, and it was good seeing a lot of the folks out there and a lot of the citizens. Also, the Memorial Day parade was a huge success, and I love that just none of us have skipped a beat when it comes to remembering our fallen, and the city has done a great job. The staff was awesome, the volunteers, we can't do it without you. And again, every council member up here has given thanks to them and the fallen, but the volunteers along with the staff, they really do. Beautiful day out there. They should have been with their family, probably wanted to be, but they were out here serving. So thank you to all of them. Thanks.
Councilmember Briles, any report?
Yes, Mayor. Our family also visited the Memorial Day reverse parade and appreciated the hard work the city staff and the volunteers did in planning it out, setting it up, and taking it down. We also visited the Veterans Monument and reflected on all the residents of our city who have served in our country's military and made some sacrifices as well. So thank you.
Councilmember Morgan, any report tonight?
No reports, Mayor, but I just wanted to echo my fellow council members' statements about the Memorial Day Parade. It was fantastic just getting out there, talking with volunteer members of the community, my fellow council members that showed up as well. It was wonderful. My son got to wear the Air Force jacket from World War II from his great grandfather. Wow. So it gave a moment to discuss it with him and to bring it to life, which is invaluable. Thank you for everything.
Might need to seek legal advice from the city attorney whether no report but is a report. As the city manager.
Thank you, Mayor and members of council. I too just really want to echo the way in which the community of volunteers and staff came together to pay their respect and honor to the fallen and their families who continue to make a sacrifice. The reverse parade, as well as the condition of the Veterans Memorial, it was pristine, it was polished, and it was something that we should all be proud of. There are many families that came to the memorial on that day. You could tell that they were going through various sorts of grief as related to just simply the way they were standing there at the Veterans Memorial in silence with their loved ones. You can only imagine the suffering. It's the least we can do. And I really want to honor the volunteers. And what was new this year, we already did the videotaped memorial at the Veterans ahead of time. And I trust that all of you had the opportunity to see that. If not, it's still available on the website. But Mike Kidd, one of our community residents, not only provided his uniforms for the event, but also was very instrumental in pioneering the concept of a memorial board. Those are going to be available on the city's website, and we'll bring them back for Veterans Day and then Memorial Day. Our plan is to do this into the future. At our last Tuesday evening's council meeting, one of our members shared with us in real time at the end final comments from council, the community, his service in the military. This has an organic feel to it, and ultimately what we're looking to do is build a community of volunteers so that this is both a labor of love as well as an opportunity for healing. So I really just want to thank the community at large, which also obviously includes our staff, and the way in which we all came together for this event. Moving on now to this quick update on the graduate car parade. We have confirmation from the chamber that they are going to sponsor 2 additional graduation banners, as they did last year. And thus far, as of, I think Kristen just gave me an update, we have 74 cars currently registered. Please recall that we're limiting this parade to 250 cars in order to maintain safety. Once again, I want to remind us that the route is approximately a 7-mile long route. It begins at Jackson High School at 15008 on 36th Street in Mill Creek. Now, the route will end at the intersection of Mill Creek Boulevard and Bothell Everett Highway. We want to remind our residents and motorists that please expect traffic delays on the parade route. And we're strongly asking motorists to yield to all emergency vehicles. The seniors are encouraged to decorate their vehicles for the parade with balloons, glass, chalk, or window pane poster boards. And all in our community along the route are asked to cheer on the students as they drive by to decorate their homes. Home window signs are available on our website, the city's website, for community members to print and display at their homes. And the signs will include various school crests and offer an easy way for our residents to show support. We recommend that a parent or a non-graduating student drive the vehicle so that graduates may participate in waving and enjoy the parade route as a passenger. Students are welcome to carpool together and follow COVID-19 safety guidelines. The assembly will take place at 9 a.m. in the Jackson High School parking lot, and the procession then will begin at 10 a.m. Once again, any vehicles, any individuals who wish to register the vehicles can do so at Sign Up Genius, and we have the precise link on the city's website. Before we move on to other reports, are there any questions related to the graduating seniors parade, car parade?
Do we have a timeline on the banner? Because I know last year we had that for the month of June.
Kristen, do you have a response to Councilman Stuckler's question?
Yes, they will be delivered by Thursday, and I reached out to Hillary with MCCA, and they should have it posted by Friday at the intersection of 164th, and I'll put the other one in front of our City Hall office on the sidewalk leading up to Town Center.
Great. And one other request or suggestion. Could we set up a City of Mill Creek site on the parade route where city employees, council members, anyone who would like to could come together to wave and wish our graduates the best. I did that last year, but I have another group that wants me to set something up. So I think it would be great if we could. It'd be great to mention to the council and to our employees that would like to go out and say, hey, this is who I am. I'm part of the city. We're really proud of you. Congratulations. So if we could set that up, I think it'd be a great suggestion.
Yeah, Councilman Steckler recalled that last year, I think it was called the VIP tent that at the city. We got the tents that sit in Mill Creek's logo.
Yeah, we want to go away from that VIP thing.
Yeah, we're planning that, and frankly, we've not given much thought to the location. But I'm thinking the location that was set up last year might be the ideal spot again this year. So great reminder. Thank you. If there's no further questions, Mayor, or comments, I'm going to turn the table over to Chief Young. And in the future, we will present this up in the presentation area rather than in the report section, because there are slideshows tonight, but we'll make that adjustment for the hereafter.
Michael, you have under your staffing updates.
Yeah, thank you. My glasses are steaming up here. We have currently filled, as Director Todd pointed out at our last council meeting, the city engineer position, as well as the associate planner position. I do want to announce that we have advertised now for approximately 3 weeks rather, the deputy city manager position. It was a very popular response. We have reviewed all the applications as of over the Memorial Day weekend, those that have been submitted. We presently are sending out supplemental questionnaires to 20 of the applicants. Our plan then is to conduct preliminary telephone interviews and Zoom interviews throughout the month of June. We hope to have finalists identified by the end of June, beginning of July. And our goal is to have a potential hire date in August during the summer recess of this year. We are also putting final touches on the posting for the communications and marketing coordinator position, posting for the vacancy. And we are looking for the work that Kristen Rasmussen does across all of these different job descriptions and job titles to be shared with this additional posting, with the additional individual that would ultimately be hired for it. We're also looking to add to that a number of components related to internal communication, and frankly, just an overall enhancement in the way in which the city communicates its message and receives feedback from the community and all the various positions. We will be placing a premium on innovation and creativity with regard to this vacancy, and we hope to have this vacancy up perhaps as early as Thursday of this week. We are also reworking, now that we have our new city engineer on board, working with Director Todd in the engineering department, the job descriptions for surface water engineer and project engineer have been reworked, and I believe they've been posted. And finally, there are 2 budgeted open positions in the police department. There was an announcement of a retirement on a 3rd. We are working with our Civil Service Commission as well as NTN Network and PST Network, two networks that assist police departments in the posting of the civil service related police officer vacancies. So that concludes my report, Mayor.
Was Director Todd going to cover the question on the farm that came up last week?
Yes, he is. Thank you. So I will turn the floor over now with council's permission, Mayor, to Chief Young, Police Chief.
Thank you, City Manager. Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem, members of council. We promised you that we'd start coming back to you monthly with the different statistics that we're capturing. So I'm going to share my screen with you. The first thing that you'll notice up on the top, the number of calls for service dispatched and initiated has consistently gone up throughout the year.
Please enlarge that if you could.
Have already gone up as well.
Sorry to interrupt.
I'm sorry, say again, City Manager.
If you can enlarge that, it would be appreciated.
That better?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so as you can see, we're steadily increasing in our numbers. There were a couple of other questions that came up, one with regard to graffiti. So in March, we saw 13 and again, 9 for April. We have had an uptick in some of our property crimes, specifically vehicle prowls and catalytic converter thefts. We are currently working on those issues with some other resources to develop solutions. One of the other ones I wanted to point out was the request for the response times for emergency calls and for non-emergency calls. So we've included those for this month, and we'll continue to include those as we go forward. And you'll see that we are having a little bit more of a response time for emergency calls and non-emergency calls. And that's due to the increased calls for service, some staffing issues, and other complex issues that are related to our case investigations and so forth. And with that, I'll take any questions you may have.
Any questions from the council? I see, are you reaching for your light, John?
I can't keep my mouth shut when I look at these great. I want to compliment the chief on those response times. They're very, very good. Thank you for complying and putting that in. It's a great message to send out to our community. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Chief. I appreciate you coming back to us monthly with these numbers so we can keep in touch with what's going on.
Yeah, absolutely. Anytime. We'll see you again in about a month for that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Please proceed, Michael.
Thank you, Mary. Next up is our finance director, Laurel Ginzo. I believe the council last week expressed a desire for a regular update regarding the ARPA. Laurel, can you provide that, please?
Yeah, good evening, council. So I don't have a whole lot of new information for you, but I did want to point out that the ARP funding is a direct, non-competitive federal grant from the U.S. Treasury Department. So this means our city's aid is not mingled with aid obligated to the state or county. So our federal grant dollars are protected from state or county interference. They can't put any additional restrictions on our funding. So because we are under 50,000 people, we are considered an NEU or a non-entitled unit. And NEUs at this point in time have been given guidance that the state will be letting them know their disbursement amount and what's needed to receive funding. But the state has not given guidance as to what needs to happen yet. So we're kind of in a waiting pattern. I will say they did note that the NEU disbursement will be just under $443 million for the state of Washington for all NEUs. Unfortunately, we don't know what the total population of all of these NEUs are, so we do not know what our distribution amount is yet. And then I just wanted to highlight what these funds can be used on and what they cannot real quick, just so that it's fresh in everyone's minds. And then if anyone has any recommendations or ideas, I'm happy to take them. So we can use the money to respond to the public health emergency or its negative impact. We can provide premium pay to essential workers. We can replace revenue loss in relation to governmental services. And then we can make necessary investments in water, sewer, and broadband infrastructure. And they did end up adding this stormwater is something that can be, stormwater infrastructure is something that can be included there. And then they specifically say that these funds cannot be deposited into any kind of pension fund, and they cannot be used to directly or indirectly offset a reduction in tax revenue. So those are the two main things we cannot do. And then that's all I have so far. Any questions?
Councilmember Steckler.
Great, hey, Laura, great report, and thank you for following up that whole definition of how we are, I forget that word used, in an EDU, a little town. I do know that Seattle just this week announced their allocation and structure of how they're utilizing their funds. And I don't know if we had a chance to take a look at that, but I highly recommend taking a look at it just for an example of how, they're a big city, so they were given the ability to do that really way before us. But it's a good example of how they're using their funds and how they're allocating them, that they did get approval on. So the good news is the money is there, it's coming, the big guns are getting it first, the big cities, but it's good to learn from them as to what allocations and utilizations are getting approval and they're able to move forward on. So I was going to just make that comment.
Councilmember Morgan.
Thank you, Mayor. So I did see on the little flyer thing that you provided, one of the items here is the negative economic impacts respond to economic harms to workers, families, small businesses, impacted industries, and the public sector. So whenever you do get additional information as to how we might be able to allocate these, much like Councilman Steckler was mentioning, we would greatly appreciate that type of guidance so we can formulate any type of plans we might have for how to distribute these funds. So whenever you get that, we appreciate it.
I can't see my lights clearly. All right. Anyone else have any questions, comments? See none. Thank you, Laurel.
We'll move on now here to Director Mugdad.
Thank you. There you go. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah, so I will go first to the question about the farm from last week. So remember one of the citizens, excuse me, share. Can everybody see that about certificates of occupancy?
Yes.
You seen that?
Yes.
So one of these citizens last week asked about his potentially, I think he was asking about a perceived change in the rules about the occupancy for the farm. We sent the answer to him last Thursday with the question to understand exactly what the nature of his question was. Did not hear back, but the body of what we sent to him was this, which comes right out of the development agreement. That has not changed. And so specifically the phasing of residential building and spaces at 75% of the freestanding commercial buildings that are listed there and the ground floor commercial spaces in the mixed use buildings must be completed, and the commercial spaces listed for lease and or sale prior to the city issuing the first CFO for a residential living unit. So they don't have to be occupied, they have to be ready to be occupied. So the shell has to be ready. So when they find a tenant for those commercial spaces, it would be a matter of some tenant improvements and the commercial space would be leased. So we're not holding them hostage to get commercial leases to be done, because that isn't necessarily easy to do, but they have to have that prepared before they can have any of the residential units occupied. So with that, I'm going to unshare that screen and ask if there's any questions.
I'm not seeing any.
Okay, so I think, and so I said we did get that back to that citizen. If there was a question behind his question, I was missing that. We're still awaiting his response. I see he's not on tonight, but we'll try to check in and make sure he got my email and has his question answered.
Director Todd, he's in attendance in the council meeting.
Will is here.
Oh, he's there. Okay. Well, I don't know if we want to get into a dialogue. That's up to the mayor. But Mayor, that is the materials we sent out.
No, thank you I just wanted to make sure we all were going on the actual language of the development agreement. I guess my only question is just to clarify, we have not amended the development agreement since it was approved by the council.
That is correct. We've not, if there were to be any amendments, it would come before the council. The council has the final authority on anything and nothing could be done administratively. I think that was some of the confusion that was voiced last week.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So the other report is that we are here tonight to let you know of the number one. I'm going to introduce Frank Reinhardt in just a moment, but I want to let you know we are proceeding with the one project that's kind of remaining from staff from last summer, just before I got started. And that's the official name is the Surface Water Aging Infrastructure Program 19-SW-01. You'll remember this is the grade F failures that we repaired as a city in 2019. Most of those were open trench repairs. There were some fairly serious things that was done the first year. And then last year in 2020, a trenchless approach was used where we did what's called cure in place piping. And 2020, those were completed. And then prior staff had sent off the Gray and Osborne as our consultant to work on a tranche of pipe repairs for 2021. That has been prepared. Essentially, we're at the design phase, and so we're intending to go out to bid for those. And Mr. Reinhardt will talk about that in a moment. In general, our program, you may or may not remember, it was about $750,000 that we had laid out for this infrastructure program over the next 10 years. 10 years worth of grade C failures, maybe it was 9 years of grade C failures over that time was about $750,000. I gave the consultant the instructions this year to go between 500 and 750. So they've got, and Frank will talk about this in a moment, we've got a kind of what we think from engineers estimate should be amount that fits into this. We recognize that this is late in the process, but I was very anxious to make sure we had staff on board to help us with the bidding process and make sure we had a good design set. So we're going to go out there. If we get some good bids, great. If we don't, we can sure put this off to another year. We do not have imminent failures like we did a couple of years ago. This is just a matter about getting after our issues that are going to be something that are important for us over the next 10 years. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to City Engineer Frank Reinhardt. I'm very happy to have him on board. He's been on board for a whole week, and so he solved everything so far. Well, no, he's been drinking from the fire hose I've been feeding him. Done a great job. I'm going to let Frank take it from here. Tell us a few words about the project that's coming before them and the schedule for it, if you would. Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and City Council members. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to come and join your team here at Mill Creek. It has been a very, very productive time settling in. So to talk about a little bit more about the project that Director Todd has presented, we have looked at a program of about 31 lineal feet of cast in place pipe lining. We're going to bid that as a base bid. We have another 1,200 optional feet in lining that we're going to put out as a optional additive bid. We'll see what kind of prices we get. The focus is on the base bid. That'll be the basis of award. So we're in the final process right now of reviewing and approving the final plans. The goal is to put out that bid next Thursday, June 10th. Be about a 2-week bid. So looking to get bids back then, or open bids on June 24th, and hopefully bring before you a award recommendation at your July 6th council meeting. So that's just, again, tonight I just wanted to bring you a very, very broad outline of it. I expect to bring you a more detailed presentation. For the most part, the pipe lining is underneath Trillium Boulevard. That's about half of the base bid area, with the other half being spots here, there, and everywhere all through the city for the most part. The focus is to complete the Trillium Boulevard work first. We're very mindful of just the reality of timing and the absolute need to get that work done before school starts in the fall. So that will be the priority, to get that work done. And then when we're hopscotching through the neighborhoods, we're looking at about a 2-week or a 2-month, construction project all told. That's kind of my brief outline. Do any of you have any questions that I might be able to answer tonight?
Councilmember Bryles.
Yeah, I would be interested to know just how invasive are these repairs that we're looking at. I know that we talked about the full trench repair and some of the other things. I wanted to know, Trillium Boulevard is still a pretty well-traveled road even when school isn't in session. So I wanted to know how involved that is and what traffic issues there may be along there. If you're ready today, I'd love to hear it. If not, then I'd love to hear it in the future.
So the way this works, in a very broad sense, is you take it between two manholes at a time. You open up each of those two manholes, you slide the pipe liner from one end to the other. So what this looks like from the public point of view is a couple of lane closures to provide physical access to those manholes. We do it a section at a time. You need to complete one section before you move on to the next section. So it's a rolling traffic control all along the street, pretty much along the south side of the street for the most part, although there's one section where it does cross the street. However, there's no work, when you're doing a trenchless repair, there is no work going on at the ground surface between the two manhole openings. So we can cross a street without having to close the street.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing none, welcome aboard. Hopefully,
Thank you.
Michael, will let you take that fire hose out of your mouth soon. Director Todd, did you have anything else tonight?
No, Mr. Mayor, I did not. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Just also for the record, I think, are we gonna do it next week, Michael? There's a little bit of confusion coming out of our last meeting about the roles and responsibilities of the hearing examiner vis-a-vis the design review board. And so I've asked the city manager to have Director Todd give us a very brief tutorial so we can make sure that we are all on the proverbial same page. So with that, any further reports?
No, Mayor, thank you.
Okay, that moves us to audience communication. Would anyone like to speak to the council? I see I see Mr. Nelson. Sorry, my low battery is flashing. I got 10% battery, so hopefully that'll carry us through no more than 3 minutes. I can't, my screen is gone blank, so after Mr. Nelson provides his testimony or comments, oh, there we go.
Less than 3.
Okay, Mr. Nelson, name and address, 3 minutes, please.
Okay, Will Nelson, 14925 29th Drive, Southeast Washington, 98012. My recollection from my question last time improved a bit, and I think what I recall on the development agreement was a conversation before the development agreement was completed. Having said that, I can remember the meeting when the discussion took place, but I'll be darned if I'm going to go through 2 years of meetings, video and audio. So anyway, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nelson. I don't see anyone else on page 1 of my screen. I don't see Barb raising her hand, so I'll flip to screen 2. I see no one else with their hands up or waving, or anyone else like to address the council? Seeing and hearing none, we will adjourn the meeting at 7:22 and reconvene next week at 6 o'clock. Thank you.